How did school traumatize you? For someone, it is the happiest time of their life. Friends, favorite teachers, childhood, and lunches in the school cafeteria. But many would like to forget this period of life forever. What kind of psychological traumas could, or can you get at school? Modern scientists believe that a person is equally affected by genetics, his own psyche, and social environment. So anything that happens to us in society could leave a mark on us. In childhood, when our personality is still forming, we spend a huge part of our time in school. So how we grow up depends on our classmates and teachers very much. For a child, a school class is a basic social group that is particularly important in adolescence, and unfortunately, there is no guarantee that this group will accept you. At school, you can become a loser for no reason. Usually, the role of the outsider is chosen simply by someone different from the others. A kid can be different in height, wear glasses, or watch My Hero Academia. We all have our own individual traits, which means, in theory, we could all be outsiders. It can happen at any moment. You just come to school with a new hairstyle, and you get teased because someone of the classmates found it funny. Or you did not lend a pencil to a classmate, and here you go, the whole class is not talking to you. All of this can lead to problems in adulthood. For example, a child can form a learned helplessness. He is so desperate to get a confession that he already begins to believe that he deserves nothing. The unprocessed syndrome of learned helplessness, earned behind the school desk, is very damaging to the quality of life. Fortunately, something will help get rid of it, and this thing is psychological help. But where do kids get their cruelty from? The Jane Elliott school teacher experiment has shown that literally everything, the smallest thing, is enough reason for hatred. So she made it seem like the blue-eyed kids were smarter than brown-eyed, gave them the benefits, and the brown-eyed kids almost immediately became outsiders. Their grades were down, and their motivation was down. But when Elliott said that she was wrong, and in fact, the brown-eyed ones are smarter, and ex-outsiders were just as responsive to those who were bullying them, only their attacks weren't as intensive. Now fortunately, scientists don't do these kinds of experiments on children, but the experiment is extremely revealing. Bullying requires very little. Teachers and parents are not always ready to interfere, and not everyone knows how to do it correctly, and don't know what consequences their doing or not doing will have. At school, we learn to communicate, build strong attachments, and make friends, and bullying victims are deprived of that. Children who are aggressors are not necessarily evil in themselves, but can compensate for their own low self-esteem or lack of attention. Such children may simply lack the skills to communicate carefully because of the way they are treated in their families. In adulthood, this can result in such a person's self-esteem being held back only by belittling others. If the person who participated in bullying is aware of his mistakes, then he can be tormented by guilt. Teachers often inflict no less trauma than classmates. They can do it unintentionally, but many of them do not take into account that work with children and teenagers who have their own characteristics. They expect students to behave like adults, sit quietly, and adequately respond to criticism and comments. Do not make noise. But often, it is just impossible. The teacher can scold the child for the fact that he is constantly spinning on the chair and cannot focus on the topic of the lesson. But it's important to understand that not being persistent and fast-switching doesn't always talk about discipline problems, so the kid can have attention deficit and hyperactivity syndrome. According to different data, 3 to 10% of the population have this syndrome that is not so small. Children don't behave this way on purpose, but because of the differences in the brain. They have less active dopamine nerve cells, so they need stronger stimuli. It's very important for these kids to know that they're going to be accepted and helped, but they're often labeled as a bully. And if a child doesn't have support outside of school, they can believe that there's something wrong with them. When children grow up and enter puberty, things do not become easier. During active puberty, the level of hormones responsible for normal body formation is higher. That's why math homework can turn a kid into an animal. In addition, a teenager may simply not be able to deal with these emotions, which is to say, that even many adults can find it difficult to control them. In adolescence, support and acceptance are particularly important to us, and we ourselves are not happy to feel so much, and would gladly reduce the emotional range. But teachers often make it worse. They can punish you for laughing too loudly, or humiliating you, for example, crying. Tears are our psyche's way to ease the tension. If the teacher forbids you to feel pain and express it, the child forms an attitude, nobody cares. This destructive thought leads to complications in adulthood. It is difficult for such a person to ask for help. He endures everything alone, and so burn out faster, and is more prone to depression. The school becomes a real test for perfectionists, because there are only subjects and lessons, on each put grades, and everything is necessary to do perfectly. For this purpose, the perfectionist spares neither time nor energy. He is ready to sacrifice sleep, food, and communication with friends. And the teachers are happy to support this destructive behavior by singling out excellent students and writing them into favorites. Praising such a kid over others, the teacher raises the bar even higher for him, setting an attitude of either A+ or I am nothing that can take root in the child's consciousness for his entire life. There is no guarantee that he will grow up to be a responsible adult who will perfect everything. Reaching may work backward as a stopgap for new endeavors. If I can't do something perfectly, it's better for it not to take it all. You probably know the situation when a teacher lowers the grade for writing or an essay because your opinion is wrong, or when you get the right answer on your math test, but it doesn't count because you had to solve it in another way. It seems that some teachers just forbid children to think for themselves. They are not waiting for students to have unconventional answers and creative approaches, but this is exactly what is needed by people of any profession. Difficult tasks require creativity, and this skill must be trained. But teachers often ignore it. However, it is easier for many teachers to test the workflow than to evaluate students' arguments and explain where they made logical mistakes. As a result, children get used to the fact that their opinions are not interesting to anyone, and it is better to act like everyone else. The school routine and the need to follow many rules can kill all the love of learning. This can not only hinder academic achievements, but also destroy any career. In these times of rapid scientific discovery, learning is a must. And if you have an allergy from school to study, you will find it difficult to navigate the modern world. In school, we not only do trigonometry and classics of literature, but we also learn to communicate and understand ourselves and others to know the world. And if we are unlucky with teachers, we have to learn the program ourselves. So if things are going wrong in your adult life, blame it on the teacher who yelled at you in the 7th grade. And see a psychologist. Universal counsel. School was tough for many of us, and if those memories still hurt, it's okay to get help. You're not alone. At least I like you, my fellow viewer, and proper support can change everything. Take care of yourself. You deserve it.